Thank you for turning to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at Traveler, the New Era. 30 years. This was published 30 years ago in 1993. I want to take a look at the book a little bit. I'm not going to go through the book in great detail today, but I'm going to talk about why, even though this is one of the more divisive editions of Traveler ever published, why I have a soft spot in my heart for it, and why I still will break this stuff out and read it every now and again. So today we're going to take a look at Travel in the New Era. Also, quick reminder, please subscribe. Trying to keep the channel growing. And also, please take a look at Patreon if there's anything you can do to help out there. That's how I keep up with current releases from Mongoose. So if there's anything you can do to help out there, I would appreciate it. Back to the important stuff. 30 years ago, Traveler the New Era was the new kid on the block. Pun intended. We're going to take a look at it today on page 121. Traveler the New Era. Love this gorgeous 90s artwork. I really do. Just a fun cover with a lot going on, different adventures awaiting you. And then the back cover. I always liked this guy in the spacesuit, looking a little annoyed. He found a remnant, as they were called, somebody who was in frozen state, preserved, and came from the original Imperium. And now, of course, we've moved ahead to the year 1201. So this guy's ticked because there goes his salvage rights. This guy cost $25 back in 1993. Mine was put on the shelf on May 4th of 93. I couldn't find an exact release date for Traveler of the New Era. If anybody knows, go ahead and throw it in the comments below. I found one release date online that said January 1st of 93, but I don't believe that. But it did come out in 93. And I remember reading this over the summer of 93. And 93 was a big year for my family. My wife and I bought our first house together. My oldest son was only 2. And we moved into our first house as a family. And it was a good time. And I remember taking him to the park. And while when he got a little older, of course. But when he was a little older and he and his friends were running around playing and I was watching them, I would have some Travel to the New Era stuff sitting at my lap. To browse through while I kept an eye on them. So Travel to the New Era has lots of fond memories for me. We had a lot of fun playing this. A couple people that I haven't gamed with in many, many years played this game with me, and we had a lot of fun with it. We had some pretty good adventures. I ran my New Era campaign primarily around the Salamani Rim because most of the action in this book officially takes place down around there. The Hivers are very involved. We get to meet the Reforation, the RCES, Reforation Coalition Exploratory Service. Yes, that's what it stands for. The RCES comes out here. The Space Vikings. They go in and they take the tech that they need to grow their own little group. Whether the other people need it or not, it was kind of a divisive kind of thing just by itself in the game. And of course, we got vampires. Vampire Highway, I'm gonna fly it all night long. We used to always sing that whenever anybody would mention Vampire Highway. The Vampire Highway, that's where Virus was, where they were lurking. And the ships were called vampires because they would reach out to your computer and assimilate your starship if you hadn't taken proper precautions. I know Virus. I know the destruction of the Third Imperium at the end of Mega Traveler. It hurt. It hurt a lot. And I know the New Era was not what I was looking for when I heard there was a new edition coming around. And part of me was a little upset. I still love the Third Imperium, the Golden Era, the Golden Age, and of course even Mega Traveler during the Rebellion Age. I still ran a campaign behind the Claw, so I kept that nice Golden Age flavor to it. But I did some stuff around the Salamani Rim, so when the New Era came out and concentrated around that area too, it was kind of a nice fit for me. Not quite to the Salamani Rim, it's Diaspora and things like that, but it's close enough. So I like Travel of the New Era. I didn't like what it did. This was at a time when a lot of different franchises were changing things up to try to build a new fan base. A lot of the thought was at the time that if we change out the old, it gives people a jumping on point. Unfortunately, it gives people a jumping off point as well. And I think Travel of the New Era served as a jumping off point for a lot of folks. I stayed through the series, through the edition. I liked it. I bought it. I read it. Uh, an old job I was at, a couple old jobs I was at during the time this was out. Again, some fond memories, some not so fond memories of those jobs, but still. One of the questions was, who's this lady? Who the heck is she? And that was kind of a little teaser they threw out. Who is this lady that is on the cover here, looking so regal for the 90s with a bare midriff? And we didn't know. And we're finding out about the wave, as it's called in the Traveler Wiki. And the Empress Wave is I've always described it to my players. And that, of course, is that psionic effect that is traveling across charted space and causing all kinds of problems. This is the lady that Strephon saw in the image, and he described her as a woman of regal bearing like an empress, and it gave the wave the Empress Wave name. That was a big enigma of the new era. We were all wondering who she was. A lot of us figured out who she was over time, and I remember reading that at some point, probably in the last 10 years or so, but I'm darned if I could find anything to cite. So if you have a different opinion of who this lady is, please leave me a comment below. But I'm pretty certain that I read online that she was indeed the Empress, and I figured she was. I figured this was her crown. I figured that was the Empress that Strephon saw when he saw the psionic image of the Empress in the Empress Wave. So anyway, we're going to take a little quick look through some of the stuff in the new era. Black and white books were still very common. Printing was still not inexpensive. The digital stuff we have now has spoiled all of us, I think. The gorgeous stuff Mongoose puts out these days. But this is what we had at the time. And honestly, this book was nicely put together. And for $25, you got a lot of book. This was also the beginning of Travelers House, or not Travelers, but Game Designers Workshop's house system. They were trying to make all their game systems run under one style for character creation and for everything else. The idea being that if I knew how to play Traveler of the New Era, I could play Space 1889, Traveler 2300 AD as it was called then, or Twilight 2000. I wouldn't need to learn all these different game systems. I would have one unified system and I could play all the different milieus under it, which is a sound marketing idea. This was a fine system. I'm really taking a look just at the artwork here. I love the artwork, I really do. The late 80s, early 90s look, very nostalgic for me. We get a nice look at the timeline of the history of the Imperium, and then leading up to this time, we find out about the Dawn League, and here's the map of charted space. We're down here in Diaspora sector for most part, around here, not too far from the Solomani Rim, in the ruins of the Third Imperium. You are flying your ship, usually around tech level 12, and you're flying your ship from place to place, trying to find survivors to make contact with and maybe trade with, or to find tech that could be used. You could bring back for the Reformation Coalition. That was your faction in this early edition, or you're trying to locate and maybe topple TEDs, TEDs, technically elevated dictators, technologically elevated dictators. TEDs were big ones, or TEDdies, as we often call them. Here we get the character generation. A lot of artwork in this book, which I liked. I still like. I like going through these books. I thumbed through this one not too long ago, just having some fun. Some more on the characters. Hivers play a big part in it. The Hivers may be doing a manipulation or not on the humans in their backyard to try to uplift them to maybe become some type of buffer for the Hivers against future threats, similar to what they did with the Ithclur. Here's the map of Traveler of the New Era as of 001-1201. Here we are. We're down around the Diaspora sector. The Black Curtain, that's all around Capital. We didn't know what the Black Curtain was for a long time. Really wouldn't get definitive answers to that until Martin Doherty published his 1248 stuff. And we got a lot of looks at that as to what the Black Curtain was and things like that. So if there's any interest in this, in 1993, Traveler of the New Era from 93 rather, if there's any interest in this going forward, I will touch on things like what the Black Curtain was, just other stuff, how the vampire virus worked, how it's not as ridiculous as my computer programmer's son first thought when he heard virus. Ha ha ha! It's actually something that changed the hardware in your system. It's just interesting. It's science fiction. We have to always remember that. Just can take a look at a little bit more artwork. We did get some adventures in here. And we always got characters. There's a nice character, a ton of characters brought out in this edition, which I did like. One thing I still think Mongoose a little light in is characters in their various stuff. I don't know. I like this edition. I didn't like what it did. I was never a fan of Virus, but I understood what the marketing was at the time. I didn't necessarily agree with it, but I did understand it. But that's a real brief look at Traveler of the New Era today. Let me know if you're interested in seeing more on Traveler of the New Era. There's some few nuggets here and there that I wouldn't mind diving into. But let me know. And please give me some feedback if you want to see more on Traveler of the New Era. But otherwise, this video was really just put together to say happy anniversary to Traveler of the New Era 30 years later. That's all I've got to say today. I hope you liked what you heard and saw. If you did, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on page 121.